So Marnus, thank you very much for making time to share your insights into the future of leadership.
Perfect. Thanks, Dr. Nick, for the invite, and it's great to be here.
It's great to have you on the show, Marnus. And before we walk into the future, can you tell us a little bit about your background? Where did you grow up?
Perfect. So I grew up in Johannesburg, South Africa, then went to study at Stellenbosch University, where I did accounting and law degree, then came back to Johannesburg to complete my articles in accounting at KPMG.
And tell us, Marnus, what was your dream career when you grew up?
So that's always an interesting question when people ask that, because I wasn't one of those kids who had a very specific dream in terms of being a fireman or a doctor or anything. I always just knew that I had the ambition of making South Africa a better place, and I was never quite sure what role that would take. Definitely didn't think it would be insurance, but here we are.
And is this still your dream today?
Yes, definitely. I really love this country. I think we've got such great potential when we get people to work together in the right way. So that's definitely still one of my biggest dreams.
Great. And Marnus, who inspired you in your early days?
The early days, definitely, my parents grew up in a very loving household. My dad, very driven, humble, structured individual who I learned a lot from. And my mom was very, very compassionate, loving, and caring. So I had the perfect balance of two amazing parents, and then also two amazing brothers who really meant the competitive spirit in the family kept on challenging me to do more and achieve more.
Now, Marnus, today you're leading one of the most successful startups in the country. Looking back over your career, would you say there was a turning point, or maybe a number of turning points?
So I wouldn't necessarily say there was such a specific single event that happened. I think one of the big turning points was in my three co-founders. So Matthew, Sizwe, and I didn't know them at a personal or career level before Pineapple. So the four of us met quite serendipitously, with myself, Matt, and Da meeting through an innovation competition, and then meeting Sizwe on the Gautrain train. So I've really learned a lot from them, and I think meeting them is definitely probably the most profound turning point in my career.
Now, Marnus, looking into the future, as a leader, as a global tech leader, you're leading a team, you're leading millions of clients, you're leading many, many diverse audiences. I know it's a big question, but what does the future of leadership mean to you?
So I think, in my view, one of the things that are going to be becoming more and more important is the ability to inspire people that actually have agency to make a change. Because the more we live in a global society, the easier it is for individuals to feel powerless. Like the global structures are so big that me as an individual, I can't really have an impact, or I can't drive change. And I think as globalization continues, where we get these more and more global structures, it's a lot more easy for people to sit back and say, who am I to make a change or to make a difference in the world? So I think the future of leadership is really about inspiring people and getting a sense of agency among people, that they can actually get involved, even if it is at a micro domestic level or at a very, very local level, to get involved and drive change in that way. So I think something we're seeing a lot, especially around among the very young generation. I think the generation that's coming after millennials has tested the lowest in terms of agency and locus of self-control. So they don't believe that they've got any ability to influence or impact the future of the country, of the world at all. So I think leaders will have to play a very important role to show and inspire people that they can actually do that.
Now, Marnus, as a leader, you are leading a team of many young future leaders. Looking back over your own leadership journey, what have you learned that you consider most important for developing future leaders? In other words, what is it we have to do more to develop future leaders, to encourage future leaders?
So for me, one of the biggest learnings was it's not enough to have a good idea, have a good story, and to inspire people, because that only drives a very short burst of change, and that energy is often very short-lived. That inspiration and idea has to be backed up by the ability to implement process. So we can have an idea to do something, but if we don't have the processes in place to effectively execute and to maintain and to continuously deliver at a high level, all of that inspiration and the soft idea, etc., doesn't really mean much. So I think the operational side of leadership, especially if you look at some of the challenges that our country is facing, I think there's a lot to be said about just getting the basics right, putting the processes in place for execution. So yeah, I think that's definitely going to be something that's going to be very important to take us forward.
Now, Marnus, you're talking about challenges, and obviously, this is a challenge. These are challenging times, right? I mean, the world is stumbling from one crisis into the next. What is your advice for future leaders, especially entrepreneurial leaders? What are some of the biggest challenges they should expect to encounter in their career?
Entrepreneurial leaders are definitely going to encounter quite a lot. In the South African context, it's definitely not an easy journey. It's not more developed markets where access to funding is readily available. So yeah, I think fundraising is definitely, from a business perspective, one of the biggest challenges. But from a leadership perspective, I think it can be quite a lonely environment to lead, especially an early stage business, because from the outside, it always looks like everything's going well. And when in reality, on the inside, there's lots of challenges that you'll have to face, especially when the organization is quite small and you have to do everything from mopping the floors to printing to delivering. So it's the big challenge, especially at the early stage, is to inspire confidence in those around you, to create a clear vision of where the business is going and to bring everyone along for the ride. But then to, as soon as possible, to track the data points to where the business is going versus where you are, and continuously reinforce that confidence that the vision and the dream that you sold at the start is actually materializing into a reality, to further enhance that confidence and bring more and more people along for the ride.
Now, Manus, if you were to develop a curriculum for future leaders, especially future tech leaders, future startup leaders, what are maybe one or two new skills you would want to factor in?
So I think the one thing that we've really learned a lot from is from some of our colleagues that come from a bit more of the traditional corporate environment. So I think entrepreneurs often know a lot about technology, a lot about the business that they're operating, but from a people management perspective and getting those processes right, I think that's something where entrepreneurs could really learn a lot from the existing big corporates who have very advanced processes in place to make sure that people are effectively taken care of, effectively incentivized, effectively trained, etc. So that's something that we've really seen as a shortcoming in the curriculums that are educating entrepreneurs. Obviously, there's all the obvious things that you probably hear a lot of. The fast advancement of AI is definitely going to create a lot of opportunities. So I think any leader of any startup or scale up at the moment has to have their boots on the ground and their hand dirty when it comes to understanding what the progression of those technologies are and how to implement them. So I think those are sort of two very separate and different modules in that curriculum. But I think, yeah, you need to be a jack of all trades if you are going to make a success of it.
Absolutely. Now, Marnus, as a mentor to future leaders, and that's formal or informal mentoring, can you maybe share a success story or two where you mentored an upcoming leader and that person took your advice to heart?
So for me, it's the relationship that we've had, especially as a founding and an executive team, is we all mentors and mentees to each other because everyone in the team has a varying skill set and we learn so much from each other. So for instance, Matt, who's in our team, he's got a very, very strong sense of superior discontent. So he's never comfortable with the status quo, what we're delivering, the quality of the product, the quality of the service, the quality of the culture. And he's constantly pushing us. Even perfection is never achievable, and we'll always push to get it as close as possible to that. I know I'm not the mentor in that situation, but that's where I've learned something really valuable as a mentee from Matt. I think something that I really drive from my side is with the other people in our executive team is operational execution. So everything that we do, we must be able to have clear targets at the most granular level and track it on a daily basis. So, and track it versus what our targets were. So that's something I've really been pushing with more of a mentor role with others in our team is how do we set up processes so that at any day we know exactly how each of the smallest possible elements of the business is performing relative to what the target for that element was. So that I think that's something I bring more to the table as a mentor rather than a mentee.
Right. And Marnus, looking back over your own leadership career, are there any role models of leadership that you encountered and maybe worked with that you would recommend future leaders should learn from?
Yeah, so I think everyone in our executive team, I've learned so much from Matthew on superior discontent, Risha, who's our COO. I've learned so much from her in terms of how to motivate people, how to inspire them, how to create a culture of accountability which doesn't feel like you are dictating to people, but you're actually leading from the front. Bentley, in terms of how to be politically, well, not politically correct, but how to manage complex emotional situations in a calm and responsible manner. Sees where how to really build personal relationships with others. And Nicole is sort of the heart of Pineapple. So I've learned so much from her in terms of how to be empathetic at the deepest possible level with people, with customers, with our employees, with suppliers we work with, etc. So I really have consistently learned from our team and really grateful to have such amazing people surrounding me.
Excellent. Now, Marnus, where can our listeners follow you and how can they connect with you?
So connecting is LinkedIn is probably the best place to connect. But we do have a lot of content that gets delivered via Pineapple social media platform. So that won't be only content about me. It will be about some of the other amazing leaders within our organization that I have mentioned. But if you want to follow the Pineapple journey, you can follow us on TikTok, Instagram, Twitter, LinkedIn. We really have quite a wide range of content that goes out on all of those platforms.
Thank you. And last but not least, Marnus, what is your advice for the millions of learners out there who are looking to finish school, start a career, maybe become an entrepreneur, start up a startup? What are maybe one or two success principles they should keep in mind?
So I think what is incredibly useful is to spend some time at one of the big corporates if possible, because there's a lot of negative things that people often say about big corporates, but they do have a lot of IP that they've developed over a long period of time in terms of how to manage people, how to be operationally efficient, etc. Working at a big corporate is definitely something I would recommend. It also will teach you a lot of work ethic to work there. Then design thinking is another thing that we found incredibly valuable. So always starting with the customer, what are their needs, and then building out products and solutions from there, as opposed to just building what you think people want and then only figuring out at a later stage that that's not the right thing. And then the other thing that we found incredibly valuable is you really need a team if you are going to innovate, because innovation is a really uncomfortable place to be in, because you have to be able to challenge people, challenge assumptions, etc. So you have to have a core team of people without egos if you are going to do that successfully. So I think that's something we're really grateful for, is within our management team, we're not always perfect, but we try and put the egos aside and really focus on the problem, so that the problem is always more important than what you thought the solution should be. So yeah, I think those are three principles that have served me well.
Well, Marnus, thank you so much for sharing your insights and your wisdom into the future of leadership, and especially for putting South Africa on the map in such a positive way.
Thanks, Dr. Nick. Really appreciate it. I'm not sure if we're the ones putting South Africa on the map, but I appreciate the compliment nonetheless.